Kahve molamızın ardından MobileMoxie'nin kurucusu Krum, mobil öncelikli indekslemeden bahsedecek. Now, Krum will present us Mobile First Indexing presentation.
Yay! Woo. Hello, everybody. Like she said, my name is Krum. I'm the CEO of a company called MobileMoxie, based in Denver, Colorado. We do mobile SEO and app SEO consulting, and I've been doing this for a very long time. I've actually been doing mobile SEO since before the iPhone, so we were doing it for even WAP sites, so that's a long time. And I love it. And I've been historically pretty good at predicting and understanding what Google is doing, where they're going, what things are going to look like in the future. So what I'm here to talk to you about today is what I think mobile-first indexing is going to enable from Google. So the Googlers talk and write a lot about how mobile-first indexing works. And I'm going to talk to you about what I think it enables or makes possible. Now, this is all speculation, and it's just my guess, but I think that I'm on the right track. And even if you don't believe me, you'll learn a lot of interesting things today. Interesting thing number one, this is my dog, and his name's Barkley. I love him very much. He pops up throughout the presentation. So the title is Mobile First Indexing, or A Whole New Google. Do I have a clicker that works? Yes. OK, good. Great. So Google is changing, and most SEOs are totally missing the point. At least I think so. And to understand where things are going, I think it helps to use this model, the S-curve of technology. And so we have at the bottom a new innovation that really not a lot of people are picking up. It's kind of slow to take off, and then all of a sudden it becomes a thing. So it's like MP3s, you heard of them for a while, and then all of a sudden everyone was using MP3s for music, and then everyone was streaming. And so it takes off. You hear about it for a while, and then it takes off. And then it becomes mature. Everyone's doing it. It's not the cool new thing. It's just a thing. It's just standard. And what happens when you have a technology improvement like that is there are a lot of minor internal changes, component improvements usually, that make this larger change possible. So we have things like on phones. Phones were just originally for calling, and then all of a sudden they got browsers, and then they got apps, and then we had better cameras. And as that was happening, the maturity of phone and digital technology was kind of first going really fast up, and then everyone had it, and it wasn't new or cool anymore. It was just a thing. And while that's happening, everyone's kind of enmeshed and stuck, thinking about what's going on and what they're seeing and what they're participating in. But it often distracts from something else that's happening in the background, because just like you maybe weren't part of this low part, there's another low part that's happening in the background that's an incumbent, or you have the incumbent technology that we're all using that everyone's paying attention to. While that's happening, there's a replacement technology that's following the same path in a sneaky way, and you might be missing it. And I think mobile-first indexing is getting us along this sneaky path that makes other things more possible. To understand the future of SEO, what you have to understand, number one, is that more than half of the searches that people are doing are on mobile phones. So if you're an SEO and you're ignoring mobile, that means you're not a very good SEO. I'm sorry to say that. If you're ignoring mobile, you're ignoring more than half the search traffic. But secondarily, data from 2017 shows that 61% of mobile searches don't get a click. So if you're only evaluating your success by traffic to your website, you're also missing the point. So half of the searches aren't on your desktop, aren't on the places where your tools are measuring. For the most part, SEO tools measure desktop data. But then 40% or 60% aren't getting clicks. So you're seeing 40% of 50%. That's what your tools are measuring. That's a problem. The reason the clicks aren't there is because the top of the fold is dominated on mobile by Google-hosted stuff that Google owns and tracks itself. What Gary said was, we're measuring Google engagement. Yeah, here, on this stuff. Google wants to engage its users just like you do. So they're getting between websites and their customers with Google-hosted assets, things like knowledge graph, answers, maps, app packs. Everything that's showing up neatly at the top of the search result is where Google gets its engagement from. And this is going to help, in the long term, help enable things that Google cares about, like voice. This graph shows the growth of voice-first devices. We know that things like Google Assistant in the first part of 2018 sold 40 million Google Assistant-enabled devices. That's not just phones. That's speakers, alarm clocks, TVs, radios, screens. They're putting Google Assistant in lots of different things. Google's doubling down on voice, and you can see with where they're investing, not everything that they're investing in even has a screen. How do you handle a search? Like, Google does search. Without screens, how does search work? It works by voice. Surprise alert. Websites don't work without screens. How does your website work without a screen? There's not a good answer. And a horrible experience would be if Google tried to just read your long website to a user as a response to a voice query. That would be really bad. That would be painful. So that's not an option. But that's only part of the change. I think the change is bigger than that. If you read Google documentation, especially the stuff that's not targeted at SEOs, stuff that's like from their annual conference, Google I/O, they're talking about mobile first, offline first, AI first, and voice first. The secret is, these are all essentially the same thing. You get to a place where the difference or the thing that enables all these things to be possible is the same. So here's what you need to know. Google's goal when they started was to organize the world's information, not just the world's websites. And 90% of the world's information was created in the past 2 years, and frankly, that statistic's like 2 years old, so it's probably even bigger. We're creating more and more data at an increasing rate because now everything's trackable. We're all wearing Fitbits. We're all tweeting all the time. We're all creating huge data footprints, and Google wants to index that too, because that's information. Things like Nest thermostats and your Ring doorbells, all of the things that are now on the internet, creating information, creating videos. That's stuff that Google wants to help organize. Maybe not for search, but they certainly want to help organize it. And maybe for search. So there are all these things that Google wants to rank now that don't have URLs. They want to rank apps, and they want to rank businesses. They want to rank audio. They want to rank and help you surface email. They want to rank PWAs, SMSs for your own personal search, right? Private, personalized, logged-in search. Photos, music, all this stuff that they desire to organize because it counts as information. These things don't have URLs, and Google was originally built to organize the web and URLs. That's what it thought it was doing, was crawling the web. And so it organized things based on URLs. But that becomes harder when we're trying to organize things that don't have URLs. And so when Google started, they organized their information based on the link graph, what they could crawl and follow links to, and that's how they knew when topics were related. They used keywords, but they also crawled links and gave more credit to sites with more links. This is what we know, right? They've been saying they're trying to get away from links for a long time, and I think mobile-first indexing might be related to that. Because as it turns out, the link graph is not a great way to organize information. It's a bit too organic, if you will. It's too messy, and it has to be constantly crawled and recrawled to verify that nothing has changed. But the reality is that a lot of stuff doesn't change all the time, so it shouldn't have to be crawled and recrawled, but basing an organizational scheme on the link graph means that it does. But if you think about this, what if all of these books were like the equivalent of an encyclopedia? You republish an encyclopedia every year, but the organization of the encyclopedia doesn't change every year. It's actually pretty static. It doesn't have to be recreated every year. We might just add something else in. And so I think mobile-first indexing is taking that messy data set and reorganizing it on something more stable. So you can take the exact same stuff and just organize it a little bit differently. So when I hear mobile-first indexing, I redefine the words, and I say mobile means portable, movable, cross-device. First just means prioritized, and indexing is like the way you organize information. It's like the Dewey Decimal System was an index. A table of contents in a book is an index. And so mobile or portable prioritized organization of information takes the exact same set of information and just organizes it slightly differently. Like this bookshelf maybe was originally organized by title or author, and now it's the same books reorganized by color. That may not be helpful for you finding a book by author, but for whatever reason it works here. And I think Google has done the same thing with their index, just taken the things and reorganized them so they don't have to constantly recrawl just to verify their understanding of the world. And I think it's roughly based on knowledge graph. Now, this is speculation, but I have good feedback behind this, or good reasons behind it. If we think about Google's index being organized more according to the knowledge graph than the link graph, they don't have to recreate it every single time. They can say, we know these relationships exist, right? And then it makes them less dependent on the link graph, which they've been trying to do for years. And part of the reason that this becomes interesting is because Google started creating these knowledge graph IDs, right? And they're telling everyone you need to mark up all your schema and mark up all your hreflang. That's been the big thing they've been focusing on. But knowledge graph gives us knowledge graph IDs, which are numeric, right? That is going to be important in a minute. But if these knowledge graph items exist separately, then the relationships between the items exist separately too. So we have Taylor Swift has this ID, and within Taylor Swift, here are her songs, and they have different potential IDs. And so that's the idea of an entity, right? Taylor Swift becomes a knowledge graph entity, a thing unto herself without a URL. And I think Google's idea of keywords, when Google was reliant on keywords to surface information, you would get lots of links because they couldn't understand what you're asking for. So when you ask for what time is it, you get the time, but you also get a bunch of links in case that wasn't what you really wanted. But when you understand something as an entity, you have a deeper, richer understanding of the information, and Google can just answer your question. And that becomes really important in voice. And this is where Google is going. Google is trying to answer more questions, especially in mobile and voice. What they want to do is surface the answer to your question or your query, rather than just giving you a list of blue links. Because remember, Google doesn't want to read a list of blue links when you do a voice query. They want to just understand and give you the answer. And so the number of answer and knowledge graph results in voice and mobile have been going up year over year. And I think we're going to see a big increase in this. So, and entities are at the center of this concept. So if you think about a thing, like a bucket, buckets have lateral relationships and vertical relationships. There are things that are vertical, like a big bucket, a small bucket, a blue bucket, or lateral, things that are related to buckets, like a mop or a broom. And Google is creating these entity relationships and encouraging us to follow them. So this is Google Android's intake process for setting up the kind of media that you like. And within it, you have sports, TV, musicians, actors. You can drill down and say, within sports, I want to hear about this, or within news, I want to hear about this. And then you can drill down further. Within sports, I want to hear about this league and this this particular team, and you can even drill down to the players, right? Those are vertical relationships between entities. And those things exist outside of URLs. And Google is even giving us these static Google Knowledge Graph locators for the entities that they know about, that you can find permanently. So entities make Google's job easier because they're language agnostic. Remember, they're numbers. You don't have to translate Taylor Swift, but you also don't have to translate bucket, right? Bucket, let's say, if it had an entity ID, would be a bucket in any language, regardless of what language I speak. A bucket is still a bucket. A blue chair is still a blue chair. And one of the reasons that image search is important is because it's where Google's doing a lot of changes. One of the big changes that happened last year was that Google started allowing image search to be more language agnostic by surfacing content based on the idea more than just the keyword. So when you search for blue chair, a blue chair is still a blue chair regardless of what language I say blue chair to you. Who wants to say blue chair in Turkish? That is the same thing. If you're searching for an image of a blue chair, it shouldn't matter what language you speak. In fact, Google has more pictures of blue chairs if it takes all of them, regardless of the language. And so you started to see a lot more international results in image search because they were grouping them and saying, we're categorizing, like Gary said, we're categorizing these things. We don't care what website it came from, we care about the keywords, but only once we understand what they are, not just the keywords outside of the language. Same thing with movies. When this change first went live, I searched for Tulip Movie. And since Tulip Movie is the same language, regardless, like it's called Tulip Fever in English, but the movie was always the same. And so it was showing the cover of the movie in all different languages, including like Chinese, German, because that's an entity, that's a thing outside of the language that describes it. So Google cares about language more than you think because language represents understanding, and understanding is critical for giving a good voice result. So the problem is that Google was built in English. It's always been best in English. English is a good language for Google because it has a lot of people who speak English or can search in English, so they can use their machine learning to get feedback about how they're doing and update their rankings based on English. The problem is for smaller languages, it takes Google longer to learn because it has less data and less feedback. And so Google understood English, but it didn't necessarily understand other languages. The language was fake when it was just keyword matching. When it was just surfacing a result based on a keyword match and a link, it wasn't real intelligence, it wasn't real understanding, it was fake. What they needed was a deeper version because that doesn't scale, that doesn't translate. So if you think about how you learn a language, if I said, this is a chair and this is a table, they often occur together and you sit in the chair. When you learn a new language, you don't have to relearn the relationship between the table and the chair. You just have to learn the translation of the keyword. But Google was starting from zero every single time and relearning the relationships. It wasn't applying what it already knew in English to learn new languages, to learn relationships. So that's not real intelligence. That's not real understanding. But now, Google's focused much more on translation and leveraging what it understands, especially in English, but now it understands 10 languages natively without translation. So it's leveraging that for real understanding of a query. And that's how you get the clock result, where it really understands what you want. It's not just showing a bunch of links and hoping you find what you're looking for. It actually gets it. So that's a nice theory, but how do we know it's true? Well, you can usually tell what Google is doing and what they care about by what they're investing in, and Google has been doubling down in their language investments. First of all, there's this Google Market Finder tool, which you can put in a domain, and within like 5 seconds, it'll return what it thinks that website's about. Now, it's not crawling your website already. It's not crawling your website right then. It's already got your website classified by what it thinks it's about. And so you put in Chewy.com. It's a pet toy food store. And so bump, 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 it comes back with dog, pet food, treats, coupons and rebates, pet leashes and collars. So coupons and rebates, it's probably not a site about that. That's a wrong classification. But it probably offers coupons, but it's not classified that way. But it is, actually. It shouldn't be, but it is. Google's also got the Cloud Natural Language API, and the tool has an interface on the website that you can just put text from your website in and evaluate it. And it can tell you the sentiment and the salience, and it even identifies, like in purple, I put something from my website. In purple, the MobileMoxie tool set, it says this is a consumer good. That's kind of not right. It's more like a business good, service maybe. But then it tells you other things that it highlights in the sentence and what they are. And if there were an entity in here, it would say this is an entity. And then it tells you the relationship between the words in the sentence. This is a verb, this is a noun. Now this tool works right now in 10 languages natively. It understands and can map out the sentence, understand the entities, identify the keywords, already in 10 languages, unfortunately not Turkish. But it's a good way of knowing, is Google really understanding what we're writing on our site? Have they identified our content correctly, or is there more work that we need to do to get Google to really understand that we're not a coupons and rebates site, or this isn't really a consumer good? So Cloud Natural Language now works in 10 languages, but they've said that they want it to be live in 32 languages by next year. And that's all about enabling the Google Assistant. Now, Google Maps is already working in 39 new languages this year, and that's important for a couple reasons. I think that they're testing a lot of the stuff in Google Maps, but also think about searching when you're in a place where you don't speak the language. If I search for a grocery store, like in this example, let's say I'm here and I don't speak Turkish, so I search for grocery store. I still want a grocery store, and I don't want to go to Google Translate to translate the keyword before I do the search. And Google can understand that when I search for grocery store in Turkey, I'm probably still looking to buy groceries, just because I didn't know the right keyword. And so it can still get me there, right? That's really useful. And when you think about this in terms of entities, Munich is the same city, regardless of what language I speak or what language I say it in. If I say we're meeting in Munich, we're both going to end up in the same city. If you say München or whatever language, we'll both end up still in the same place. And that's handy. So MobileMoxie, we've done a lot of research, and we've kind of created a diagram about how Google understands different languages based on the prioritization of the language in Google's mind. We have a very long 5-part article series about this that I'll show you a link to later. But we've done a bunch of testing, including the lower volume language that we used was Bulgarian. But we've done a lot of live testing on mobile results to see how and when is Google able to identify entities internationally, and when are they not. And depending on the classification of the language, we have a good way of predicting how Google understands it using the Google Translate API and the Cloud Natural Language API. So this diagram probably doesn't make any sense right now. Don't worry about it. Read the articles. OK, so why do you care? Google, I think, wants entities to work because it lets them be the presentation layer of the internet. And that means that they can do a lot of really cool things, even without screens. So when you think about a search for Monty Python, it's an entity, but it's actually a couple different entities that they need to disambiguate. So they say, do you mean Monty Python, the movie, Monty Python, the film series, Monty Python, the group? So you can disambiguate. You get the link to the permanent knowledge graph location. You get a breakdown of what is included in their knowledge already. What do they already know about within this entity? And then the top entity domain. So we're used to results like this. But now think about how easy would it be for Google to start incorporating non-website content in with those results. And then think about a search for music. And in the US, the apps are Spotify, Pandora, Google Music. Those are already showing as deep app links in the music queries, in a lot of them. Same like if you're searching for food delivery, the food delivery apps show up with the restaurant entities that they're associated with, right? So Google can now link from the knowledge graph to the apps that you want, or to the video that you want, or to an information or answer, or a podcast. They can link from the knowledge graph to all of this stuff. That's powerful. Now think about how that would work in cases where you may or may not have a screen. If you're searching for Monty Python on your TV, the likelihood is that you're looking for the video or the movie. If you're searching for Monty Python in your car, hopefully you're not watching TV and driving. Hopefully you're looking for audio, right? If you're searching on your computer, this is where it's hardest to tell, and this is why SEOs are kind of missing the point. The computer does all of it, right? But not all of the devices that have Google Assistant can do all of it. So now, when Google becomes the presentation layer and they get in the middle, they can help direct you to the right content for the device that you're searching on. That's important, because you don't want to try and listen to a podcast from a watch if your earbuds aren't connected, right? Or you don't want to try to watch a video from your Google Home speaker that doesn't have a screen. That would be dumb. And Google Assistant is connecting all the devices, so what Google hopes is if you're searching on a Google Assistant, like a home device, this one, if you're searching on this and your TV is connected with a Chromecast but it's not on, then Google can turn the Chromecast on and send the video there and say, hey, we don't have any audio for that, but we have a video, we're going to send it to your Chromecast. Or vice versa, if you search on your Chromecast for a recipe and it can send it to your phone so that you can make the shopping list and take it with you. Or it can send you directions to your car or to your phone if you search for a location on the Google Home, which is stationary and doesn't move. So Google wants to drive search results that you can listen to, that you can watch as videos. It wants to drive multi-surface kinds of results, and it wants to be able to surface those things everywhere, and voice and audio are the most ubiquitous of all of them. And so they're pushing really hard on speakable schema, FAQ schema, Q&A schema, because those parse the content into little bits that would be a good voice result or would be a good answer, that Google doesn't have to read your entire web page. It can just read you the bit that you've written, that you've marked up. And that's powerful, but also realize that when it's just a little bit of text, Google can translate it too. So they're smart, and they're going to be building out their capabilities, and they're not going to lag so far behind in smaller languages when they're leveraging their knowledge graph understanding of the world. And to prove this point, let me show you a couple more pictures. We're used to knowledge graph showing a main domain or an official website, but they're branching out. Number one, they're starting to show query results in maps, which is new, organic search results within the maps interface. But they're also starting to link to deep pages from the knowledge graph. So this is from the World Cup, and when you can drill down, or you can see what game is on right now, and they lift a bunch of stuff. So they know what game is on now. They can speak it to you, probably, if they want. And then if you're on your computer or your phone, they link to the deep page on the website. This is also a link to this particular match, not just the home page. So again, Google's getting between you and your visitors or your searchers or your users. They're becoming the presentation layer, and it's because they understand the keywords not just as a keyword, but in a larger sense. They understand what you want when you're searching for the keyword, that when you search for World Cup, you either want to listen to it, read about it, watch it, whatever, that you're not just looking for a link. We're also seeing things like branded map packs. So when I search for Target, I don't just get like some Target stores and then on-Target jobs and on-Target printing or whatever. It understands that this is a brand. We're not going to muddy it up with other things. It's a branded map pack. But also know that Google is getting in on this because there's a products tab in the branded map pack. So you can buy products through Google, from Target through Google Shopping. So Google's monetizing on this one. Same thing like this. This is a Lego ship in a bottle. It has a particular manufacturer, yes, and they link to lego.com. But they also show where you can buy this exact same product for different prices. So this is from Google Shopping results. They're monetizing on this query as well. They understand what you want. And so if you search for Lego ship in a bottle, you probably want to buy it. Here you go. Here are the best prices. So what you also need to know is that people are entities. And so you can claim your personal or business entity ID, right? When I search, this is a search for me, Cindy Krum. Do you mean Cindy Krum the author or Cindy Krum the business? And you can go get verified. And then you can start publishing stuff in your Google Knowledge Graph, or at least you can start optimizing for it. If you're a small business, Google My Business, you can start doing posts. You can claim your Knowledge Graph and associate it with the Google My Business entity. This is building out Google's Knowledge Graph so that it has a better understanding. And this is going to allow Google to personalize more, allow them to be more cross-device, and allow them to monetize in a bunch of different ways. Now they can monetize audio, monetize video, monetize recipes, monetize the target result in shopping. And that's going to give them higher margins. So to plan for this, number one, go look for brand entities and claim them. Expect to see more categories and filters in Knowledge Graph and in Google hosted results, because those are things that people can operate with voice only. Expect a decrease in focus in web links and an increase in cross-device. Test your text and content for entity classification in those tools that I showed you. Optimize non-domain entity content like apps, maps, videos, Google My Business, everything that's not a website. And remember that not everything needs a website, and just because you're an SEO doesn't mean you're locked into only optimizing websites. You can optimize businesses, you can optimize people, events, you can optimize songs, books, videos. All of these things are ranking without a website. Don't get locked into thinking that the only thing you can optimize is a website. This is the link to the first of 5 articles in the Entity and Language series, and that's it for me. I have a tool set for mobile SEO. You guys have a promo code for 1 month free. It's just Digital Zone, all one word, lowercase, and thanks for your time.